Just give it a second. I think we're on the internet. We're on the internet, Celine. Yeah. This is what I'm calling Creative Corner, episode 1. I'm your host, Max, and today I'm joined by Celine.
Hello.
Creative Corner, what we're going to do is have some conversations with like-minded creatives, where they are in their creative career, what they do, how they got there, their inspirations, maybe show some of their work as well. We're going to talk about the industry as a whole. We're going to talk about where they want to go, our personal goals and beliefs and that sort of thing. Going to have a very broad conversation. Don't know how long it's going to last, but again, we're doing this on StreamYard as well, so I don't know if anyone's actually going to come to this, but it will be available for videos and all that stuff. This is being hosted by Lifeproof, which is the company that I volunteer for. So it's at Lifeproof UK across all the social medias. So go ahead and follow that if you want to. So yeah, just to kick things off, Celine, let's begin with yourself as my guest today, as my illustrious first guest. You want to go ahead, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Celine. I'm 22 years old. I'm originally from Norway. I lived in the UK for about 3 years now, maybe a bit more. I have a Bachelor in Fine Art that just finished this year. I'm currently working part-time tattoo illustrator, as well as working on a game for Kamamuta Games. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Awesome. So let's talk about that journey for a second.
Yeah.
So like you lived in the UK for 3 years, you said. What happened? Where did like this idea of you wanting to go into something creative, where did that spring from? Is there anything that you can pinpoint to a certain time in childhood where it happened, or was it something that sort of developed so slowly over time?
I think I've always been into drawing and art in general. I've always had loads of hobbies. So like from a young age, I've always been doing like any sort of creative stuff. I swear to God, mention something, I've been through it. But for some reason, it's always been there.
I'm going to quickly estimate you then. Songwriting.
Yes.
Poetry.
Yes.
Oil painting.
Yeah.
Production, as in like wood cutting and stuff.
Yeah, as well.
Really?
I did some really cool small woodcuts of like Studio Ghibli movies as well.
Okay. Sculpting. You've done sculpting. I've seen you sculpt.
Yeah, loads of sculpting.
Shit, yeah, there's nothing you haven't done. Crazy. All right, sorry, carry on.
probably something, but you know. But yeah, so I've always been into that. I've had other things. I've been into like cooking, dancing, writing, but always gone back to art for some reason. And then through the different years, I realized that Norway isn't really a big industry for art. So when I was finishing college, I wanted to do something with art without it being too restricting. So I didn't want to kind of go into character design specifically without knowing for a fact that that was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Because obviously we know at that age, only like, I don't remember, like 18 or something when I go out of college. But yeah, and a friend of mine just said, "Oh, I'm going to England. Why don't you join?" So like, sure, big industry. Why not?
Why not,
right? So it was literally just that, and I just went for it. And now I'm here. I'm really happy. So yeah.
Decent. So was it your friend moving because of university, or was it you were going to move here anyway?
So it was everyone's trying to figure out what sort of university they want to go to. And she was going to study in Newcastle biomedical science. So I just did a bit of research about what is it in England that I could find. And then I found fine art, which is like really vague, but is a great stepping stone for so many businesses. They would say, oh yeah, if you have a Bachelor in Fine Art, that would be really helpful, or some sort of art degree. If it's really specific, then they'll be like, don't know about that. But it just shows that you have a creativity, which is always useful.
Yeah. So before going into sort of fine art university, what were you doing before then to sort of cultivate that?
Yeah, go for it.
So what were you doing before university?
For university, I would just draw, I guess, whenever I had time for it. But it wouldn't. I did do some sort of photography and different sorts of. It's called like general sort of course, but then with some arts. I did some architecture mixed with painting, and you got different assignments all the time. So
Right.
it was very vague in that sense, but it gave me a bit of broader perspective of what is out there. And I would say always go for anything that you can, if it comes to be available.
Okay, so like with all this, obviously you've mentioned how many like sort of hobbies you've picked up over the years.
Yeah.
Was your style that you have now, was that always a part of those things? Like, did that slowly develop over time? Was there a certain inspiration that led you to that?
I think the first thing I can kind of pinpoint, which has been quite a big inspiration to me, is Brian Froud. He's a British painter, and he kind of does fairies and sort of that otherworldly paintings. But he has a really, really great mind when it comes to storytelling through his work.
Right.
So he would make all sort of he'll make this whole world called World of Frown. He has loads of books online you can look at, where he's not just made a character but made like where it's from. He picked up wood sticks and stuff, like this is what they play with, this is the whole world, and he's fully engaged in it. So that's something that's really got me into the fantasy side of things. I think also just watching loads of horror movies from I was quite young. So if you look at my Instagram, there'd be quite a lot of grotesque things, like dark. My mom always showed my stuff to her friends and family, and they were like, "Is she okay? Does she have any sort of disability, or is she right?" And my mom always would have to say, "Yeah, she's okay. She's just have a lot of interests, and she liked the more grotesque rather than the pretty."
So parents were also supportive, as you like picked up a creative hand, like, because some parents are just like a little bit more questionable about it because of the non-security that's there.
Yeah, for sure. I think my mum more than my dad was most supportive. My dad's always been like open for me to do what I want, but he's been very strict with it's very difficult to like get a living out of art and kind of make enough, and he's very much engaged in like, you need to have enough money to live, and that's been always been his top priority. While my mum just always been like, go for it, don't care about anything. If you want to dress about that at school, you do that usually. That both of them have been really supportive, but I guess the opposites that obviously will give me different sort of aspects of life in general. So always have that duality.
So I guess like the next logical step here would be to talk about university and finding the Worcester fine art course. So talk me through that process. Like what was it that led you to Worcester in the first place, and then what other places did you look at that didn't quite have what they offered?
I see what you're saying. I looked at quite a lot of different places. I don't remember all the name because the moment I got into Worcester, everything just blanked. But I know Leeds was one of them. But they said because I didn't have the certain qualities, then I wasn't kind of good enough, I guess is the best way to say it. But because the Worcester art program, especially fine arts, is very open to all sorts of style, all sorts of doings. I was lucky enough to get in. I enjoyed myself, but I think it wasn't for everyone, if I'm honest. It was very much you get back what you give, and not a lot of people wanted to put enough effort in it. And I think that's a lot of thing in general. If you don't put the effort in, you can't expect good results back. So a lot of people expected it to be they would just automatically get better without putting the work into it, and then get sad about the grades.
They want you to get good without the work, sort of.
Yes, and those two were in the studio all day were the ones who got better grades. I didn't obviously get the best ones because everyone has their own journey. Everyone learns all the time, and I think the ones that did the best were the ones that were ready to explore everything, would ask questions, so many questions, that were critical. A lot of people don't dare to ask the critical questions, or and then show outside the status quo. So with it's weird with the fine art course. I have very mixed feelings about it, but I did enjoy my time there for sure, and learned a lot. But what I'm going into now, it's kind of more illustration wise. I never showed my illustrations there. I did everything outside illustration. This is quite interesting.
Okay. I guess now let's talk about like during university. Obviously, you're talking a lot about fine art and actually putting in the work.
Yeah,
So how does from now graduating, especially this year, right? So
yeah,
how I guess this is our first COVID question, and we're like 10 minutes in. So,
yeah.
so
It
how
was expected.
I mean, exactly, it comes up in every conversation right now. So
Yeah,
how is graduating during a pandemic? Has that changed your work in any way? Has that changed the way you look at life, look at your work, look at other people's work?
I guess in a way, a lot of people are making work about the world now. So a lot of work will surround COVID, and I think that's
Right.
great. For me, I think what's changed isn't necessarily what I draw or the themes around it. It's more
Mm-hmm.
how much I do of it, because obviously you're locked inside. So I have a lot more time at my hand and more time to kind of dive into it. But when it comes to graduating, it was devastating because I didn't get to have a degree show like so many others. There
Mm.
was this one account on Instagram who reached out to a lot of students who were graduating. I think it's called like the Social Distance Project or something like that.
Yeah.
But they kind of reached out to those who are graduating, saying, send us your work, send us pictures of what you were supposed to kind of put on your degree show, and we'll make an online degree show for you on our Instagram profile. And it just exploded. So many people sent the work, and they're still doing it. They're still putting things out because it's just this
That's great.
massive list. And
Yeah.
it is voluntary as well. Like people are not getting paid for that. It's just
Yeah.
great. Like art community, I would say, has really stuck together through all this, which
Yeah,
is
I
really
think
nice.
it's become a little bit more appreciated,
For
somewhat
sure.
as well. Especially like something as powerful as that as just saying we're gonna show your work because we understand that you probably didn't get a chance like everybody else has, and like
Yeah,
why should you be singled out like that? You know, okay, we might not be able to do a full exhibition, but we can do the equivalent of that on an online gallery or something like that. Something that I thought was interesting. I went over to Manchester. This was about 2 or 3 years ago now, and
yeah,
they had a VR headset set up, and they were displaying students' work inside a walk around VR gallery. So you could literally just walk
yeah,
into different segments of the gallery, and I just thought that was quite different. Like it's not normally like when I think of VR, I normally my thing just goes to gaming straight away. It doesn't go to
yeah,
anything else. But how that application then changes is very, I think it's quite important and probably a little bit unexpected, at least for me, because I know that something like that is going to be, especially if they can become more accessible in the future.
yeah,
And just let's say like you had something set up where you almost like a Google Maps thing where you just walk around a gallery setup or something like that.
yeah.
I think it's crazy.
I think it's madness. Like a lot of people would have to do that for the degree show if the pandemic is still on by next time June, I think, May, June, I think is when you have the degree
Yeah,
show.
they're normally in May. Well, at least that's how it was like in Worcester, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think what we're kind of missing with that is obviously the connections that you get. A lot of
right.
the people that had the degree show, I'm sure you can agree with that. You get a lot of connections with it. So people will come in for specifically looking for students to hire.
Yeah.
And the university also invites people that you wouldn't be able to reach out
Yeah,
to.
like we had someone who came in from DRPG, which are a huge global marketing industry based in Birmingham, and they've got a thing in London as well, I believe. And also there was someone who came in who'd worked on, I believe, Marvel and Star Wars, some of the Marvel and Star
Wow.
Wars films, which was a bit mad
That's
considering.
insane. See, that's what I
Um,
mean. Like, we didn't get that. Which is so
like
sad.
even if they're not there to hire you specifically, like for you to actually say that you've spoken to them and you've had a conversation with them is something else completely different, because that you might in 3 years time go back to them and just be like, hey, we had this conversation and I've seen that
Yeah.
you're in this, can I get involved?
Mm.
I think this is how this sort of came about a little bit, Celine, because
Yeah.
like having spoken, like, because we met through a social at university. I think learning about your work and just the conversations we've had in general, I was like,
Yeah.
there's something here that needs to be shown to everybody else, I think.
I appreciate that.
Speaking of which, the first, I think, from my memory, I think our first big conversation about anything creative was your statue of Hades.
Oh, yes. You even came into the studio.
Because that statue is fucking amazing. And I remember you posting the pictures on Instagram, or like even just the process, even before Hades was finished. And oh my God. And then you had to take it down, right? Did you destroy it in the end?
So I posted like every step of the way.
The whole process.
Okay. So through first year of university in fine art, you get more restricted. So you have a grade where you get a word or 2 words, usually like a technique and then a theme. So maybe it would be like performance and space, or sculpting and factual based things. Like it will be kind of like put together like that, and you can kind of choose, and they'll put you in groups so you have kind of similar people to work with that will do the same stuff as you, so you can kind of bounce ideas off each other, which is great when you have no clue what you're doing, like me, where I would just be like, I've done everything, I have no clue what I'm doing right now, so I'm just gonna choose whatever I feel like. So through the whole first day, I think I did performance, I did sound work, I did sculpting, I did like some sort of painting thing, I don't know, multiple things. But in second year, we got a lot more freedom, so we could choose our own theme, and the only thing was restricted was time-wise. We got, I think, 2 to 3 weeks to make whatever you want to make, and I was just like, let's make a full-size sculpture. I never made a sculpture in my life, but let's do it.
Let's just jump into it. I think university is great for that, because especially where like we were, this is just sounding like a go to University of Worcester plug, but it's really not. It was, you were encouraged to just in university in general, you are encouraged to try out new things.
Yes.
And because it nearly always builds you better as a person, like, because then you know what you do and don't like, you know what you can and can't do. Teach you to mix with different friends, know different people around the university, because if you do know quite a few people around university, it does pay huge dividends into who you can speak to, who you know to speak to, and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And it did help that the teachers as well were like in different fields. So we had one that did performance art, another one was a painter, the third one did, I don't remember, multiple things, writes. They all were kind of had some sort of knowledge to give you, which was super helpful. You just have to ask for it. But with the sculpture, I'm very much, always since childhood, very, very engaged in folklore, as well as like fantasy fairy tales. So with Hades, mythology obviously was something I really, really want to do. Always had this big idea of making the Greek gods full-size life-size statues out of clay. So I did a lot of research, found out I wanted to make the armature basically from just junk I would find, so I didn't have to buy so much. I think that's a general thing that a lot of artists struggle with, is the cost of things. Art supplies cost so much, unless you're doing like digital art or things online, which is a lot more convenient when it comes to that.
But even then, like digital stuff is, if you're using the Adobe programs and you want all of them, that's a couple $100 a year. CAD is ridiculously expensive. That's like over $1,000. And any other things. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, it's okay. Feet to the conversation. But yeah, I think, we didn't get any money from the university either. Other people might get like £100 a month, or £100 a year or something in the university, but for some reason international students that study art didn't get any money. Everyone else got like money to do the, what's it called, there was some sort of website that
you want about the Reach scheme,
the Reach thing. Yes. So everyone else got like 150 the first year, then £50 second, and £50 the third. I didn't get anything because I'm an national art student. I was very sad about that. But some people use that money of that. Otherwise, you didn't get any money from the university to pay for things. And they expect you to do all these things and go big and go all sort of creative maniac things, and you don't have the money for it. So that's why junkyard is a great place to go. I just pick things up from the streets and base that as a sculpture. And so the actual clay layer of that statue is like this thin. The rest of it is just a chair that I had in my accommodation that we're allowed to use. Tin foil and like foam I found on the street.
I remember a lot of tinfoil foam, because when I first saw it, it wasn't finished yet, and you'd had like the main bit, like the main torso done, but like around the legs and stuff, there was like balls of tinfoil, that sort of thing. I think that's great though, because it's putting another use to what otherwise would have been wasted.
Exactly.
So I think that putting that back into to be viewed as a piece of art, whether it be, you know, made into something that's permanent or something that's just going to be there temporarily, I think just giving that new use for an old thing is really important.
And it's interesting as well with religion and mythology, it keeps getting reused and remade. So everyone says that also religion and mythology comes from the same place. It's just people keep changing them to kind of fit their way of thinking. So there are theories out there saying that like Christianity and like Hinduism and Buddhism and all those sort of religion is actually just the same thing, pretty much just told in different ways. So it's just a matter of preferences. Like a lot of people probably like disagree with me. That's totally fine. Not here to offend anyone. But anyway, so I want to make this big statue of Hades, and it took me 2 weeks constantly being in the studio. And in the end, I had to break it down because we were moving studios to the art house in town. So that was a bit sad, but I didn't know where to put it anyway. So I didn't know what to do.
Let you keep it like in the. Because it was a big statue, like it was life size. Like I'm gonna get up your Instagram and actually put it on screen. If you don't mind. Go share screen. Because you've got this is Celine's Instagram, everybody. I hope everybody can see that.
Yeah.
Can we see that on the screen?
I can see at least. I don't know everybody else.
Can see that. Okay, cool. If you can see that, that's fine. Hades, there we go. Like it is. So there's like, you're telling a story with this, which is great. So you've got a load of polyester, styrofoam. That's an actual chair.
It was the chair.
Those wood as legs, aren't they?
Yeah, so it was kind of legless. So I made this whole story about him because he's been there for so long. He's kind of grown into his chair, so he just doesn't have legs. There was the natural thing for me to do. I didn't want to make him legs.
Yeah, that's great. That's
a lot of
detailing as well. Like, so in terms of sculpting, was this your first time ever sculpting something?
Second time. So the first time I made some clay hands, sticking out of the box thing, but it was just playing around. I didn't really base it on much. It was a quick project. This was the first proper time I've done clay. It was air drying clay, I think. So I kept spraying it with water so it wouldn't dry straight away.
Right.
But otherwise,
oh my god, love it.
It's just wires, and then you kind of wrap tinsel around it.
The mixture of the organic, like you put like a lot of nature sides of that, like on the arms we see like it almost looks like bark or like fungus growing out of it. And
it was around autumn, I think. So I did pick up a lot of dried plants and stuff. I just collected whatever I could find. The main reason for it was I ran out of clay. And I didn't want to spend more money on it, so I had to be creative and find something to fill the gaps with. So again, it's about telling a story by using new things that you weren't anticipating to use. So I use dried flowers and plants because it's this interesting contrast between life and death. Because obviously Hades represents death, but he found his love as his life is I can't pronounce the name. It's like Persephone, I don't know. It's the goddess of fertility, and the interesting combination between life and death there is kind of what I dived into. So having those plants as representative of life and him representing of death, I kind of played around that idea.
I'm showing the process there. Look at that, and then pine cones as well.
Yeah, they were everywhere. It
Yeah,
was a
man.
pain.
Oh. Yeah, it's great, man. It's really. So this is just one project as well, isn't it? So
Yeah, I had 3 weeks. I think 1 week just figuring out how to do it. I had to ask my teachers to kind of how would you go around this. They would just said make an armature first, then build around it. So that's what
right.
I did. And then I end up spray painting it as well to
Mm-hmm.
kind of give it more, I guess, darker look.
Yeah, mate, that
It
looks.
almost looked like metal in the end because of it.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? It's almost like like volcanic rock or obsidian or something like
Yeah,
that.
it was very interesting. All the stories that people came off. They were even like start making stories out of the shadows behind him because I put like a spotlight on him. But it was an interesting project and I learned a lot. And I would never have done it if it hadn't been for just people pushing you to try new things. So that's another thing with university. It's great for trying out new things. You just keep being creative, and yeah, that's when I'm destroying him because I had to move.
With a saw. Look at that. And you're cutting it. I think the deconstruction though is quite interesting because you get to see like how you've made it and how it's brought together and stuff, and it gives like a whole new light to how it's made. And that's it in the bin.
Yeah. Luckily, we had something like that so close. Now I ended up
Mm.
keeping one of the hands.
Do you still have it?
I do, I think. I actually used the head for a separate performance piece. That's something else again, I think. But yeah, so I used the head for because I kept making my poems into different things. I guess the connection between my pieces is what I find more interesting than the actual end result. So a lot of the times it will start with a poem or a song that I've written, and then I will have an idea of how to illustrate it. So I'll make a drawing. This drawing wouldn't be the final piece. And then I would think, oh, this will also be interesting as a sculpture, maybe. So I would do that. And then maybe I'll take parts of the sculpture as I did with Hades and turn it into a performance piece. So I put Hades' head on fire. That's how I ended it. Yeah.
It's a conversation that's had through that I've had with a few projects as well. It's especially in first year of uni, there was a project to create a poster, and I ended up building this sort of like vector style, very simple shape vectored into Illustrator, and then converting that, and all the vector shapes were cut out on with a laser cutter.
Ooh.
But then that left sort of like outlines of work that then created like another poster with just like it's like the opposite of a stencil almost.
I like that. That's
I
cool.
put those layers together to create like almost like a weird inverted
yeah.
style of the poster. And our lecturer was saying, well, it's quite interesting because not only are you using what would have been destroyed, you are also creating another piece of work.
Yeah.
And then someone else with their poster, they sort of screen printed it and then scanned it back into the computer and then edited it over the computer again. And it was sort of like the idea of taking your work a step further just to see what would happen, whether it looks good or not. Because if you make a mistake, then that's fine. Like
They are not mistakes. It's only lessons learned.
Yeah, lessons learned, exactly. So. And we were sort of encouraged to do that a little bit, especially more so in first year when we had, like, you mentioned yours about how you have sort of like a plethora of things you could do and what you had access to. And if you learn that in first year, it sort of helped with the next years and so on and so forth, because you know who you could talk to and what you could do there.
Absolutely. Did you have the same thing then? Did you also have someone of theme guidance in first year more than second and third?
So for us, graphic design was more of a. I think throughout university, it was sort of there was a broad sense of modules in which what you could do. So in second year, there was one with website design, there was one with children's book designs and designing for younger audiences. And then third year, obviously, is a little bit more towards your final dissertation and that sort of thing, which is more concentrated on degree show and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's part of the reason why I chose Worcester anyway, because of how broad it was.
Yes, agreed.
Whereas others, I think I looked at one in Sheffield, and it just seemed very sort of like one way street sort of thing. I didn't know, like, what happens if I get to the end of that road and I don't like what I've done?
Yeah.
Like, I might as well make mistakes while I'm at uni and
Exactly.
have this experience, because now I can say, yeah, I've done this. I've done publication design. Yes, I've done website design. I've done app design, that sort of thing, and you can sort of say what you want to go into, or something like that, and it sort of teaches you to learn what you want to, if you want to pick something else up again. So during the first lockdown, I did a UX and UI design course, user experience and that sort of thing. So designing a website, designing an app, and I enjoyed that a lot more than I did when I was at university. But there was bits of that module at university that I really enjoyed, and there was others that I didn't so much enjoy. So it's like, well,
you wouldn't know that without doing it. So that's
this is the thing. I probably wouldn't have picked it up for another. I like to think that I probably would have picked it up at some point, but I wouldn't have picked it up so soon.
Yes.
And that's where I can start to get better at it and see what I'm good at, and learn a new Adobe program. I can learn a different tool, different shortcut, because you probably won't realize at the time, but you are just improving your work every time you get something. There's like
it doesn't feel like it, does it?
No, it definitely doesn't. There's like lots of design agencies and artists that say like the latest piece of work that they're doing is going to be the best piece, because it's taken everything that they've learned before.
Yeah,
and it's sort of like a nice way to live, knowing that, like, if you're in that mindset of because I'm creating a new piece of work, it's going to be my best piece of work.
Yeah,
I think it's quite a nice mindset to have in terms of that.
Yeah, I do get that. You do have the hills though. I feel like a lot of the times when I reached a peak, I felt like this is a specific moment in time where I feel like I put everything I have into a piece, and then you have the little dip afterwards. Like, you feel like nothing after that is going to be as good. But that's like the natural dip, because obviously you've finally seen the progress you made. So the next change won't be as big because you haven't gotten to that new peak yet.
You're sort of comparing it to what's happened before, right? And then comparing the two.
Mm-hmm.
Does that link into creative block for you at all? Do you feel, because like creative block is a big thing for creatives. However,
it is.
We do like another podcast on Life Proof. It was just a regular podcast, and I've said that for me, I don't experience creative blockers to the extent of some people.
No.
For me, it's like if I've worked on for something for an afternoon and something's not working for me, or not working for the client, or I've not got feedback yet, I just sort of have to leave it. But I can come. It's not like a 2-week period when I'm like, oh, I'm really bogged down, I can't design anything, I can't even pick up a pencil. It's nowhere near to that extent, which I feel like it is for some creatives. So I don't know what is your take on that?
I think it's very much about your mindset towards it. If you think about it as a blockage, it's going to be a blockage because it's you making it real in your head. Mm-hmm. So with the blockage, I kind of see it more as a time for your body to take a break. A lot of the time, like creativity, as any other things, take a lot of energy from your body, even if it's not physical energy, it's mental energy. I have my full-time job at the moment is working in retail because I need to get some sort of money in. But that part takes a sense of creativity, because I have to create how the clothes are going together and like create designs and all that. And that takes a lot of mental energy. And a lot of people don't think that you will get drained from it, but you will. It's like you have a tank in your head and that gets empty, and then you can't expect new work to come out straight away. You need to take a break.
Like university's not going to take a break, is it? If you're working on however many modules a week, like 4 modules, 6 modules, anywhere between sometimes more than that, depending what you're doing, of course. It takes a lot of energy, and if you're having to flip-flop between multiple projects at a time, you're going to need to be in a different mindset for each of those projects, depending on what their needs are for. And no one else is going to be like, hey, you need to slow down, sort of thing, because it's sort of something that you have to judge yourself, I think.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's all
people as well.
It's all well and good for someone to say, they're working really hard, but if they're burning themselves out because they've just got so much stress, I think it's like you say, it's all in the mindset of it and the approach of it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so talking about staying creative, what ways do you stay inspired, and in what ways are you creative?
I do different challenges to kind of keep myself active with it and keep my mind creative. So stuff like Inktober has been so helpful for me because it kind of challenged me each day to make something. It doesn't have to be much. I even made this. I've done it twice, like 2 years in a row now, and I realized that it helps a lot to create a lot of the sketches before October comes because the prompts get released a month before. So I would create a little sketch for each one, so I don't have to use that much time on the day. And I'll make a goal for myself for that October month. This is what I'm going to focus on. So this year I was focused on not taking it seriously, as well as having big contrasts between dark and light, and kind of blocking out colors to kind of make the pop more. So that was my focus. Last year was something else. But it's basically just creating something every day, based on a word, and just seeing everyone creating so many different things is super inspiring. I will find myself going into the hashtag, just staying into Instagram for hours, just seeing what everyone's made and commenting on it. So
sure. Yeah, it's a lot of how do you interpret this word? How do you interpret this brand? How do you interpret this brief?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done like logo challenges, and a few other people that I know have done logo challenges.
I've seen those. Those are sick. Everyone, if you haven't watched it, go on Mac's Instagram. It's so many cool designs.
Stop, you're the guest. You're the guest. Come on now. Yeah, so having those daily challenges where it sort of puts you in a process and a habit almost of doing that every day. And like you said, like you've like the idea of like using limited color and blocking out certain colors, and only using certain materials, perhaps, or only certain mediums in order to show your work. It's generally like an interesting sort of test to do on yourself, because it sort of like teaches you how to work almost. Like for the ones that I've done, I've only allowed myself an hour to design, like from sketch to design. So it's
that's
sort of
not a lot of time. That's very impressive.
It's not a lot of time, because I know, like, especially because when it was during like university times, like there was other shit to do when you were at uni, you know. And if you're just spending an hour of your day, you know, you've got literally the other 23 hours to do exactly what else you want to do. And it was sort of like limiting my time taught me to make good ideas, recognize what the ideas were that were good, and then take that to the next step. It also, in Illustrator as well, if you don't know Illustrator very well, it teaches you how to be quick on Illustrator and how to make shapes quickly, how to recolor stuff, how to pick a certain typeface and that sort of thing. And obviously there's like different websites out there that can help you sort of like pull colors together, or gradients or something like that, or, you know, if you need some certain images and that sort of thing, you can do that. And Inktober is a huge one though, because it's not just Illustrator. It can be poetry. It can be progressive. I don't know, progressive dance. I don't know, something. It's literally anything to anybody. And I think that's what we said like towards the beginning. It's the art industry as a whole, and the way they sort of support each other and the way they take in things is very, very different to each other. That's what makes it vast. Because even though some people might have the same style, let's say someone's got the same style as illustration, what they're going to create and what they're going to take from a single one-word brief is going to be something very different, depending on their experiences, depending on their mood, depending on, you know, who they're surrounded with. You know, if they're allowing so much time. If I was doing the Inktober thing, I was only doing giving myself an hour. Like probably the most you get out of me is a sketch or something like that, because you know, if it's more illustration based and that sort of thing. But so yeah, I think it's great to see, like, and it's understandable, because as you said, like you'd spend hours, you know, just going through and just seeing what other people have made, because it's interesting just to take in what other people have done. And it's almost like, oh, that's a good idea, I think I could have done that, but you didn't. And it was like, but I did it my own way, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time people are very much scared about copying, but it kind of breaks that down a bit, because you're going to have a lot of things that are going to be looking the same. And through the way that I taught myself art has never been through school, really. Like, I started really early, just copying things I found. And
Hmm.
I feel a lot of artists kind of struggle with copying because of there's like it's this whole stigma around it that you shouldn't copy because people want to be original and stuff. And I totally get that, but it's the purpose behind it. So if you're not doing it to kind of overshadowing someone else, you're not doing it to kind of get some sort of, I don't know, winning based on other people's art, then if it's just for learning a technique or a composition, I think it's fine. Like, how would you else learn an instrument or play football? Like, you have to do
Yeah,
it to learn it. So
yeah,
it's the only way. And I just do that. I just taught myself by copying and then taking some parts of it and then making my own afterwards. And
hmm,
that's
hmm.
what's interesting in Inktober as well, because you have all these people. Oh, I saw some. That's a cool idea. I'm going to take a part of that. I'm going to take a part of that. I'm going to add a bit of my own thing and then create
Yeah,
something new.
it's definitely part of my process for the logo challenge that I did 2 years ago. So this would be 2018. This was, and uh, one of the first things I would do is look through Instagram first, or any
Yeah.
creative site like Behance, or sometimes Pinterest as well.
Oh, Pinterest is great. I'm obsessed.
Right, I think Pinterest, you just get into a hole, and
It is 100%.
yeah,
I think I have about 50, like, what's it called?
are they boards,
Yes.
project
Yeah.
boards?
Like 50 boards, like just with hundreds and hundreds of images in. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, it's all right. And just look at, how did they take in that idea? How did they, what color did they use? Why did they use that
Mm.
color? Did they put it on a mock-up? Did they put it alongside anything else? Did they
Mm.
go beyond just the logo? Did they, start to perhaps make some packaging for it? Did they mark that up onto maybe a ticket or a bag or an item of clothing?
Mm.
And how does that affect the brand? Because obviously the brand is not just the logo. It's so much broader than that.
Yeah, yeah.
That was like part of my process. So it was like some ideas where like a certain typeface was used, and I'd be like, right, I really like that typeface. I'm going to use it on my icon. That's going to be probably completely different to what they've created, but that typeface is working for what I want to do. So I'm going to use
Yes.
that typeface, or I'm going to use that color because I really like that color scheme. And just see how it works as well. Because if you're creating something as well, like how close to those two ideas marry up, and are they completely different despite being inspirations of each other?
Mm. Mm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and coming to the end of Inktober and 30 days, and or any design sort of challenge, if you want, there's like a 100-day challenge, there's a 300-day challenge, a whole year challenge.
Yeah, you have
Coming to
the
the end-
52 weeks one or something like that. That's also Inktober though, so it's a prompt each week. But yeah,
Right.
that's a whole different thing again.
Yeah. So, what was I going to say? Yeah, coming to the end of it, it's like you then have that ability to look back and critique, feedback your own work, feedback on other people's work, and also have a portfolio piece that you can talk about, because you've done so much work in so little time, and you can talk about each and every one of them. And there's so much to talk about. Inktober is 30 days, right? So you have 30 pieces of work to talk about.
Yeah.
And you can talk about the project as a whole. You can talk about just one thing, how you've taken that one thing and changed it into something else. Like let's say that you had designed something in Inktober and also had then done a bit of poetry for it and decided to do a bit of choreography for it as well.
Yeah.
Hard to say. It's very, very different, and I would highly recommend it if anyone is listening or watching or whatever, to get yourself and do yourself a challenge, because they are so good and just so useful. Even if you don't have to share it with anybody, you can just keep it to your own thing. Like don't feel pressured to share it. Just because you'll have that ability to look back, and you can actually. It's one of those things where you can actually rarely see your improvements, because I remember the first logo challenge that I did on day 1. I was like, no, that logo's all right. And then day 30, and you're sort of like nailing stuff out in like less than an hour.
Yeah.
It sort of trained you to do that. Yeah, it's definitely something that I would recommend, especially for new designers.
Absolutely. And even if you don't like ink or illustrate, like you have like Drawtober, you have like April colors, like there's so many different ones. There's just literally search up challenges anywhere and it will come up.
Yeah, there's plenty of them around. Speaking of like sharing, copying, and that sort of thing, and how some designers might worry about being plagiarized or being penalized for copying off someone's work, I'm going to recommend a book.
Yeah, go for it.
It's called Steal Like an Artist. Are we there?
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of just advice for creatives and how sort of learning who to get inspiration from and what you can do to steal like an artist, but essentially to make your creative work better. It's a real great book. It's really short as well. It's like 150 pages. You can get it done in like probably a few hours, depending on how fast you read and stuff. But there's lots of stuff to take in there. I've marked one page. Let's see what it is. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, so this page that I've marked is talking about finding the most talented person in the room and standing next to them. So like, let's say you're at a dinner or a party or something like that, and you want to learn more about someone who's either in the industry or just because they're quite interesting, go and stand next to them and have a conversation with them. And then it says, if you ever find that you yourself happen to be the most interesting person in the room, then go find a different room.
That's so good. Oh, I like that. I'm definitely going to pick up that book. I kind of tend to, I don't really buy a lot of artist books. I probably should do more of that. But what I do is listen to podcasts. So there's one podcast I would like to recommend, which is called 3 Point Perspective. It is with Will Terry, Lee White, and Jake Parker, which obviously made Inktober and had a huge thing with that. So they're all kind of really famous illustrators. They will talk about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living out of it, and how to make an impact on the world of your art, which I feel like a lot of people want to do. And when you kind of involve the world into art, that's when kind of people, I connect with that because I did that in my childhood, or like connecting to the world is great, but there's so many people, so how do you do it? So 3 of my episodes that I kind of want to pin out specifically is one that's called My Art is Great, but why won't anyone hire me? And then you have, am I too old to get started? And your creative bank account. So they have so many other episodes, but they're so good and they're so hilarious. And they come from a point where they've done really good. So you have so much to learn from them as well. But they kind of, they make you really inspired with what they say, but they give you a point of view from a very professional sense. I really enjoyed it, at least. I'm sure a lot of people can take an interest in it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's a 3 point perspective.
Yeah.
On Spotify, is it, or is it?
Spotify, yeah. Spotify, I think it's also on Apple Music, but I listen to Spotify.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely give that a listen. That's cool. So yeah, we've probably got, I'm going to go for like another, probably like 10 more minutes, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, depending on this. Like, it's going great though, you think, right?
I enjoy it.
You're enjoying it, that's all right. We've spoken about like critiquing your own work and that sort of thing. We've spoken about ways to stay creative. We've spoken a little bit about inspirations as well. Is there any sort of inspirations any artists that you look up to, any maybe actors that you look up to that influence your work? Talk about that.
So a couple of people that I do find very inspiring. I guess it's not necessarily in illustration. Like, I like to take inspiration from everywhere I can find. So Jake Parker, as I mentioned before, with Inktober, would be one of the few illustrators that I actually like really go into. But you have Mowgli from Through My Third Eye Tattoo Studio. He's the one that kind of inspired me to, I guess, get into tattoo art more. I can't really find any other way of saying, like, if someone has the tattoo on their body, which is something I designed, that's just the greatest thing I can ever imagine. So that's the main reason why I want to be a tattoo artist as well.
Yeah, it's quite impressive, isn't it? Like, especially tattoo design, because someone is trusting you to not only design something to go on their body, but also put it on there.
I know.
And it's a big trust thing. Like, are you sure you want this? Like
something I drew.
Imagine someone asking me, saying, "Oh, Max, can you design a tattoo for me?" I'd be like, I can, but I don't want to.
It is a big step, and a lot of people I guess won't get a tattoo mainly because they have this idea, they know how to get it on paper, and that's where I feel like I can help them. I kind of just go through a conversation with people, starting from, okay, what is your general idea? Do you have an idea at all? And if they do, I ask them to get some photos that they looked at before, maybe that highlighted some of the colors that they want, or some of the style that they're into, and I'll just start sketching up things, and they will pick out certain things that they like, and I'll combine that, and then they will talk about things that inspire them, things they find great in their lives. I won't just go on what they actually want, but how they are as a person as well, because that can form their tattoo a lot better than just images can. So if they're maybe like into like astrology, or maybe I'll add the star sign into it, or if their mum is a really huge inspiration, maybe she has a tattoo that you want to incorporate slightly into the design. Like, there's so many ways to go around it, and just listening to the people, and they're being happy with it. It's my main policy. If they're not happy, I'm not happy. So I won't stop before they'll be okay, I don't think this is going to work, or they will say, I love this, I can pay for this, because I will feel like I'm cheating myself if they're paying for something that they don't like. So it is a very fine line to walk on, but so far it's going all right. So just discussing things.
So has there been a few people then that have been interested in, that you've worked with? Have they all been friends? Have they just been random people?
So I think that's kind of like what I meant by taking advantage of the people around you. Like, talk about your work. Like, don't be afraid to like share your passion. Like, if someone doesn't want to listen to it, that's within them, not within you, because you're just being happy about something you love. And I feel like everyone should do that. So I use all my friends to that. I'll talk about work all the time. They don't want to listen to just saying, okay, right, you can shut up now, and I will.
You're getting a tattoo. You're getting a tattoo.
But if I see someone with a tattoo, like even just walking into the retail store I work at, I'd be like, you have a tattoo. Do you want to get more tattoos? Here's my card. And then maybe they will look at it, maybe they won't, but the possibility is still there. And that's what kind of like helps me keep going, is just talking to people. Don't be afraid to talk to people. So most of the people that I've designed for is friends and family. It really helps. But then maybe they will talk about it to other people, and then to other people again. And that's my...
You need to start that domino effect of, you start one person, they tell another person, they tell two of their mates, they tell their grandma tells their grandchild. I don't know.
If you think about it, like, their design is a free propaganda for me. Like, they can be like, oh, who designed that? And I'd be like, this person. I'd be like, they're literally just walking around with my art on their body. I can't see any better way of getting art out.
As long as they know your name, they're basically walking around with a business card. So
yeah, it's great.
And it saves you printing business cards, and then
I still have them, but
what you've cracked the code that we've all been looking for. We should all be tattoo artists and then just take inspiration from each other's bodies. You
don't even have to tattoo. Like, I haven't even gotten to the point where getting to studio. Like, I tried 13, 15 tattoo studios in Worcester. There's so many. Not one person has an apprenticeship available. Even the ones that, like, it wasn't a matter of fact looking at my portfolio. It was the fact that they can't afford or have time for teaching someone.
Right.
So I that's also one of the reasons that I need to move at some point, time to time. But
move to where the work has been a big thing for me, at least, because my sister lives up in Leeds, and obviously hopefully I'm going to be moving to Yorkshire hopefully within the new year. Obviously we can't do it right now because we're in a lockdown too. So yeah, it's like moving to where that work is and moving to where the opportunity is, because hopefully there will be something for everybody. I think a lot of creatives nowadays, I think we need to learn how to share processes with each other, and share how we've done things with each other, and share almost like our recipes. We see that in the food and drink industry, where people have shared cocktail recipes, they've shared actual recipe books, and look at famous chefs. That's how they get famous. And because they've shared it with other people, everybody else has brought that whole other level up of if we're going to keep it with cuisine, people can then take that Jamie Oliver recipe and turn it into something else and get inspired by another thing. why can't we do that as creatives?
I think it's because artists want to be original. They don't want anyone to take what they have and maybe like someone else will make it better. And that's a huge problem. We just need to become more selfless and more giving, and kind of think about it more as by helping others, you're helping yourself as well. Because maybe if you share some things from your art, they might be happy to share like how they managed to do this. Like the most amazing people are the ones that share their work. Like they're so happy, they're so happy with themselves and with their work. They're not afraid of like letting someone else overshadow them, because they're just content. And that's so great. Like I found this one guy, his name is Cameron, on Instagram. He does illustration work. He's so good, and I just randomly reached out to him, just like, how are you doing? Like, how did you get into art? And he just told me like his story, and he said, if you ever need help, kind of like how to maybe like make prints, like I made some mistakes myself, I'm happy to share them. Like just reach out. And I think that's just such a great thing to do, just reaching out to people and sharing their experience can help someone.
I did that during my it was during second year, and when we were asked to like start to think about and how to cultivate an idea for our major projects that we would be doing in third year. And I remember just reaching out to just a few people that I found interesting on Instagram at the time, just saying, hey, did you go to university? 2, did you do a dissertation? If you did, what did you do it on? And how, just generally like tell me a little bit about that. And I was actually surprised at the amount of creatives that got back to me, because I must have messaged at least about 10, and at least half of them got back to me and was like, hey, thanks for getting in touch. Here would be my advice, or something like that. So it's especially nice to hear people. It just brings them down to a human level almost. Absolutely. If you're messaging someone who's got 300,000 followers, they might feel like a celebrity, maybe a little bit. And then when they've taken time out of their day to message you back about something menial. And it's like, it's crazy. And again, like we said, like the creative industry is, and the particularly one on a social level, is we're very good at staying connected and like sort of bigging up each other's work. Check out this page. Done this. Go check them out, or look at what so and so has been working on because it's really important to them, or try and share this. And I think that is sort of the creative industry that I want to build a career in, is sort of one where we can sort of take inspiration from each other, share each other's work, even in these difficult times and stuff, and actually be appreciative of other people's work and that we're doing our own thing. So something obviously that's been in the news recently is the Chancellor of the UK said that we should consider retraining. And we've seen things like Fatima's next job could be a lawyer, but she doesn't know it yet. And we've seen responses of that on social media. We've seen, we've seen the music industry just going, like, putting a massive middle finger up to him, and doing like online live events, that sort of thing. I think that's quite like such a creative way of sort of bouncing back to what you've said. So, what are your just general thoughts on that? And do you think people should retrain? Like, do they think they should have something else to fall back on, or do you think that?
See, I think the problem is more that they think they can survive without us. I know that sounds very narcissistic, but if you think about, like, where would we be without art? Where would we be without music? Like, it's something that we use every day. Like, your furniture is made from a designer, which is creative. Like, your glasses are made from a designer. And like even just like pictures you put on your wall is made from an artist. The background of your laptop is probably made from an artist. Like, everything that you see are probably designed from someone. Where would those creative minds be if you put them out of work? Like, what would you get? Anything? Like, the world would just come to an end. You wouldn't go anywhere. Like, it's just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Like, oh yeah, let's just retrain them, because we're gonna need more cyborg mechanics for the future, because we don't have enough of them.
Yeah, your response to that was just another question. So like, where would we be without the creative people?
Yeah.
And I think it was Saul Bass who said like great like designers everywhere, or like great designers everywhere, and then also that great design is invisible, like so you don't even notice that it's there.
Yeah.
And if you like look around your room right now, how many brands do you see? How many colors do you see? How many different textures do you see? You know, all of these were created by someone who was inertly creative. So it's almost like they've not thought about it in a way.
Yeah,
I think.
and as well as like, if you think about how many actually not getting appreciated for their work, like photographers who takes pictures of models, like you won't see their name on the model's profile, you will just see the picture. Like they're not getting any credit for it. Like the music videos that's put up, like you won't see like, oh, who wrote this, who filmed this, who made this. Like there's no credit for it, and we need to give more credit to the people actually making things.
Yeah.
Because they are the ones doing all the work. The ones I'm not saying models are not doing work, but it's about balance. Like you can't just give credit to one and not credit to the other ones. It's just wrong.
That's a great way to put it, and I think that is pretty much all we have time for. So Celine, like one last question then for me. What is your advice for people that are getting into the creative industry or are currently in the creative industry? What's your advice from your experiences and everything we've spoken about today? What is your like maybe like one piece of advice that you'd give to somebody?
Oh gosh, that's a deep question. I guess just be open to any availability that you can find. Don't close yourself off to kind of this is what I'm doing. I'm just gonna do graphic design for this company specific. That's where I'm working towards. And it's great to have goals, but if you have other things coming towards your way that might be completely different from what you imagine, but try it. So many people feel locked in their jobs and are happy because of what they're doing. So don't be those people. Like, just try something. You can always go back and try something else.
This is pretty much how this podcast started and how the Life Proof podcast started as well, because I came to Aspire for You / Life Proof to build on my graphic design skills, and I have done that in somewhat. But then after them finding out more about me and what I wanted to do, and they were like, "Oh, Matt, you should probably do a podcast." And I was like, "No, sure, I'll give that a go." You know, I've never been one to turn down, not been one to turn down things, especially at university, because I sort of like took those chances as and when. It was sort of like, "Oh, there's a trip happening here. Do you want to go?" And like the answer is yes. Or there's a workshop happening here. Someone's coming in to talk about their design agency. You know, do you want to go to it? The answer is yes. I think just say yes to more things is just generally like good life advice, because again, I think we mentioned it earlier on in this podcast, you know, it just gives you a good idea of what you don't like, what you do like, and you can the idea that you can say that you have tried it and didn't like it, or you've tried it and want to get into it more. I think you'd be surprised as well about how many companies you can turn around to your manager or, you know, whoever it is that you answer to and just say, want to get into this, or, you know, I have experience in this. Is there any way that this can sort of help or tie in? Because it might spring a project, it might spring another job opportunity, it might spring something. So yeah, just be open about what you believe in, and your values and your goals. And I think that being open to everybody and having the ability to say yes to things if they come your way, I think is huge. And with that, we're going to end the very first episode of Creative Corner, Work in Progress, I think is that name. But Celine, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
We didn't really go through like any of the questions that I had planned, but it was more of a conversation anyway. And that's the sort of thing that we want to do with this thing. We want to be as sort of raw as possible, if you like. We're going to make mistakes. And we're going to learn, and it's going to be a learning curve for us. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to put Celine's Instagram and all the good stuff in some sort of description, perhaps, if I can do that on StreamYard. I don't know. This is a new software for me. So yeah, thank you once again, Celine. Hopefully we'll see everybody very soon.
Thank you.